So I do want to talk about this book, but I also want to talk a little bit about all of you writing together, because I know this is your fourth book that you've written all together.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the genesis of doing the first book? Like how did that happen?
Cynthia, go.
Okay, here we go. I really loved Lady Jane Grey in history. And so I had been wanting to write a book about her, but the idea was so depressing because she's this amazing teenage girl who just kind of inadvertently becomes Queen of England. And then after about 9 days of her being queen, she gets deposed by Queen Mary, and not this Mary, different Mary. And then she gets beheaded. Yeah, and then she gets beheaded. And I just felt like that was the most unfair ending for the coolest like character in history ever. And I wished that I could change her ending. And then I was like, well, I'm an author, I can change an ending, you know, like but I also kind of had this idea that it would be fun as long as we were changing an ending to like make it funny. And then I was really self-conscious about making it funny because I hadn't really written anything comedic before. And I thought about my friend Brodi, who was like the funniest person I knew, who could really write comedy so well. And so over lunch one day when we were traveling and had happened to meet up together, where I was traveling, we met up together, I asked her if she would write this book for me, but it was I'm really bad at pitching. So
the pitch was this. The pitch was we were eating salads and she's like, you know, hey, I was thinking about writing this book and it's about a beheading, and I was kind of hoping we could make it funny. That was kind of the pitch. And I was like,
that's an amazing pitch.
Well, okay. I'm like, I can make a lot of things funny, but beheadings, I don't know. And then I just stuffed a large piece of lettuce in my mouth and chewed it for 6 months.
Yeah. We didn't talk about it again for about 6 months. And then we were all on the other side of the country and we were visiting Jodi, and I brought it up again, this amazing book that Brodi and I were going to write together.
Yeah. This time she was a lot smarter about it because she didn't say what the book was about. She just said, Brodi and I are writing a book together, at which point I was like, oh, that's so great for you two, pretending like I wasn't just insanely jealous. And then Cynthia was like, oh, it's fantasy. Do you want to write it with us? And unusually, Brodi was very quiet during this whole thing. And it didn't occur to me until much later that she was being quiet for a reason.
Yeah, the whole time I was like, don't mention the funny beheading.
And so then obviously when Cynthia asked if I would write it too, I was like, yes. And I was just so pleased to be included in the group. I just immediately texted my agent and I said, this is what's going on. And she was like, yeah, good luck. And then about an hour later, it occurred to me to ask what the book is about. And then we didn't talk about it for another 6 months.
Wow.
Then I had them in a car stuck on the Los Angeles freeway. And then I was like, hey, let's talk about this book we're all going to write together. And then we actually did start talking about it. And then once we started talking about it, it really started to form. And then the next day, we were supposed to go to Disneyland. Jodi, to this day, has never been to Disneyland. And we were going to take her to Disneyland. But as we were getting ready, we were like, well, we could go to Disneyland, or we could go to the library and start working on this book. And that's what we did.
And we chose the library, and which is crazy because Disneyland is like my favorite place on the earth. And we'd been, talking it up to Jodi for a long time. And then we all just spent the day in the library writing.
It worked out though.
Yeah, and it cost a lot less.
There was that. None of us got heat stroke or anything.
True.
We did go to Universal Studios together that week.
Yeah,
that was
fun.
A theme park stuck in there.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a bookish origin story, though. I love that. So, and I think it's fascinating that you all have done so many books together. Like, that to me is incredible. I think if I did one, that I don't know if I would do another one ever again because I'm a control freak. Like, how do you make it work? Because I think every author has an element of control freak in them, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I used to firmly believe that I couldn't write a book with anybody for that very same reason. But when we started writing My Lady Jane and the other books, it became our books instead of my book. And I don't know, it felt very different. Like
I was more,
actually was not as hard.
I was more worried about living up to other people's expectations and like disappointing people. And that was like my biggest concern is like, you know, if I'm writing a book by myself, I'm only disappointing myself, you know? And so, yeah, it was scary.
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely is part of, you know, mine too. Like I don't want to disappoint anybody.
Yeah.
I think that was part of how it worked though, especially with that first book. Like we didn't want to let each other down. So like how we wrote was, and how we typically write is we all go to the same physical place and we sit around the same physical table. And then we each write a chapter a day for that entire week. And none of us want to be the one that doesn't finish their chapter that day, or, you know, like, so there's this level of peer pressure that's very like lighthearted and fun and funny. And we have lots of fun and we try to make each other laugh, but like, but there is also some, you know, some pressure that comes with not being the one who sort of lets it drop, and we all kind of pitch in and do our part for that, for the drafting.
So you write the first draft like in a week?
We write half of the first draft in a week. So like we take a week, and by that time, then, you know, we have at least about 15 or sometimes 18 chapters by the end of that week. And then we take a break for a while, and then we come back together and write the second half. And usually that's most of the book. And then if we have a few chapters left, we just kind of do that.
And we definitely outline before we get together, so that we're not spending a lot of time like discussing character development, or, you know, we're like, once we're there, we'll spend like the first day kind of nailing down the chapters, and then just go from there.
So you each basically own a point of view.
Yeah. Yes.
That's very cool. That's very cool. No, I love it. I love it. And I love that it has been so successful for all of you. It's just every time I see a new book coming out, it's just because I love all of you. I think you're just such amazing writers. So it's been very cool to watch this like happen for book after book after book.
Thanks.
So with this one, what made you want to tell Mary's story?
Well, I think we wanted to come back into the Ethian world of My Lady Jane, and she was a character in My Lady Jane, but very briefly as a child. She appears on like 3 or 4 pages of My Lady Jane. And so when we were talking about sort of spreading out, we had latched onto this idea of doing Mary's next, and she was just always the top choice for us. Like it was a world we were comfortable with. It was a character we felt like we knew. We're all fans of Rain also. I have a very vivid memory of like being in Brodi's condo in Utah, like sobbing over a particular death in Rain. Like, oh no. Like, so I think there's that element of it also. You know, it definitely fit the criteria that we, you know, use when we're picking a character, which is a person that has had sort of a tragic history that we can a woman who's had a tragic history that we can kind of pick up and give her a happy ending. So we felt like Mary, Queen of Scots needed a happy ending.